Hi everyone, welcome back. After the power rankings, I'd now like to spend a moment focusing on the changes that have taken place within some archetypes, including a few predictions for 2026. Aside from a bit of patches here and there, most of the changes inside certain archetypes seem to come from attempts to optimize and speed up the decks. Premodern has the reputation of being a slow format. Even mono-reds lie, even though a burn deck actually closes games rather slowly. Think of Sulfuric Vortex and Cursed Scroll. It doesn't have a 1-drop like Goblin Guide, a 2-2 for 1 mana, also with haste. Only Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage for 1 mana. That gives you a sense of things. But is Premodern really going to remain a slow format in the future? The current adaptations seem to come from the realization that decks like Stiflenot, Replenish and Enchantress have a higher power level, so they must be beaten by increasing the speed of your own deck, really pushing aggression. From the comments I've received, even outside YouTube, I've noticed a strong collective perception that Enchantress is one of the decks to beat. I'll definitely make sure to bring you some matches on the channel as soon as possible. So let's start with the new decks. One is Moneyball Black, for which I still need to publish the deck patch. This deck is very close to me because I know that Gaia quite well and its flaws. The mana base, for example, my answer was to remove Nantuko Shade because it is an aggro creature. It's clearly meant for mono black or at least rainbow black decks. Moneyball Black goes exactly in that direction. It takes Nantuko Shade, Dark Ritual, Hypnotic Spectre from the Gaia, it cuts white, and it becomes more aggressive. With just one color, it can also afford Mishra's Factory. Compared to Pit-Rack, it plays more creatures. Usually it plays very few copies of Phyrexian Arena, maybe just one, and sometimes Graveboard Muse. Other lists play more arenas and Masticore. I see very few people playing Phyrexian Skuta, a card that, in my opinion, should be played in a deck like this. Duress, Cabal Therapy, so turn 1 Duress, turn 2 Dark Ritual, 5/5 guy. Overall, I'd say that this is a deck with a not so high power level. It's based on speed, hand disruption, graveyard control, thanks to Withered Wretch, and on avoiding mana-based issues. The presence of Cursed Scroll also testifies to its aggressive nature. Do I like it? Not much. There are these Ravenous Rats that I can't really stand, because they are not great in an aggro beatdown plan. They are there for Cabal Therapy, so you can pay the flashback cost, but Moneyball has results on its side, and I think it can even improve as it stabilizes its list. The other newcomer is Tinkerfling, a deck that, as I've already said, doesn't really appeal to me. It feels like a budget option for players who want to play combo basically Stiflenot, but you don't own 4 Phyrexian Dreadnought. The advantage is that you have 4 Devourer and 4 Tinker, so 8 copies of one combo piece and another 8 copies of the other piece, ideally Fling, or if you don't have Fling, Altar of Dementia as a backup. Dreadnought instead has 8 off and 4 off respectively. So yeah, to put it simple, Stiflenot doesn't have a backup for Phyrexian Dreadnought. The problem is that Tinkerfling struggles when it doesn't draw Tinker, and the opponent is playing a deck that doesn't let it goldfish freely. I've seen attempts to use Factor Fiction to dig for cards and card advantage, clear evidence that I'm not the only one who noticed Tinkerfling's issues. Something is creaking. But to be fair, every deck has weaknesses and Tinkerfling still puts up results. So I don't know what's next with this archetype. Then we have 2 decks that tried to change and eventually went back to basics. These 2 are Terra Oath and Goblins. Terra Oath tried to add quiet speculation with the related toolbox. Goblins tried to add Ruby Medallion. Let's start with Goblins. I remember that a year ago it often appeared in top 8s, more recently it has disappeared a bit. It's a deck with many even matchups, and while this is often cited as a strength, I actually think this is more of a weakness. To win a tournament, you need a deck with real strong points, something that gives you some easier rounds. And if those rounds happen in the top 8, you're basically in heaven. If you're always on the 50-50, you're at risk every single round. And then there's the fundamental issue. This deck plays many creatures with a somewhat slow plan. When you add Ruby Medallion, you remove Naturalize, but in this metagame I think you want Naturalize and maybe even Tranquil Domain in the sideboard. To me it's clear that decisions must be made. Maybe you need Ancient Tomb or City of Traitors to start faster so you can play turn 2 Matron when needed. I also don't dislike the idea of going all in on the Ruby Medallion, Goblin Chieftain, Goblin King, Siege Gang Commander, Axes, swarming the battlefield. These cards work very well with Pile Driver and Gem Palm Incinerator as well. A strong and fast engine, and you need to understand what you want to do with the whole Goblin Matron toolbox. Goblin Sharpshooter and Goblin Tinkerer are the most common, then Goblin King, which doesn't do much as a one-off. The toolbox also includes Goblin Goon, a big guy, maybe Skirk Prospector, so the toolbox gives you versatility, specific answers, but it slows you down a lot, and I find it a bit outdated. Today you need to be fast, you cannot afford to slow down. You have Goblin Tinkerer in your hand and it does nothing, you have Goblin Sharpshooter in your hand and it does nothing, and yes, Enchantress is the best deck, of course. You're playing a 1-1 guy for 3 mana and it doesn't even untap. Of course Enchantress is good. So let's move to Terra Oath. Quiet Speculation is a reasonable option, at least on the surface. It doesn't interfere with Oath of Druids. Speculation and toolbox cards are non-creature spells, so they fit the plan. But here too, there's a very clear underlying problem, and even though Terra Oath and Goblins are completely different decks, one is tribal aggro, the other one is control, these toolbox cards take away vital space from your main plan, which is based on Sphere of Resistance and land destruction, usually Thermokarst and Winter's Grasp. So adding these cards comes with a price that's not free. I mean, you're not going to draw a starting hand just like the original Terra Oath deck with Sphere of Resistance, land destruction spells, plus 1 Quiet Speculation. In that case, the dream scenario, everything would be great. Everything gets milled by Oath of Druids, you flash back your stuff, you go tutor whatever you need. This is not how things work. These cards that you are tutoring take away space from the other spells, and your draws get clogged with situational cards. Basically, you're giving up on your main game plan, which is Mana Denial. This is a control deck. Another deck that has lost a lot of appeal compared to last year is Mono Red Sly, the 2024 European champion, yet now I see it less often in paper top 8s. Tons of 5-0s on Magic Online, that's because it's a very common deck, but it's a deck whose success is based more on usage than on win rate. Mono Red is a very consolidated deck and it's hard to change many cards. There were attempts with Black Vise and Pyrostatic Pillar, which are strong in the opening hand, but they become terrible top decks, really awful. This year we've seen Goblin Patrol and Goblin Cadets appear in Mono Red lists. I think they're fine. When I mentioned them last year, people look at me like I was crazy, but even though they're bad top decks and they are weak in the mirror, the same can be said about Jackal Pup. 2 power 1-drops are desperately needed, and some way, somehow, it's time to pick up the pace. Also because this is actually a good moment to play Mono Red, the metagame doesn't really seem to be prepared for it, since everyone is focused on other matchups. Enchantress, Replenish, Stifle Knot. Threaten can help against decks that think they have stabilized the board, but I still believe a green splash is needed. Just think about sideboard cards like Chill or Circle of Protection Red, or other white enchantments. These are issues that need solving, and you can't always rely on hoping the opponent doesn't draw these cards, or on always having Red Elemental Blast in your hand, and you cannot tap out. Tide Still, this is a natural evolution. Standstill and Mono Blue Tide have merged, Clearly the power level increases thanks to a second color, the mana base handles it easily since blue and white are friendly colors, which is crucial in Premodern. Seal of Cleansing is excellent with Parallax Tide. Then you add Standstill, Decree of Justice, Wrath of God, a very respectable deck capable of threatening the opponent in multiple ways. Stifle Knot, I like the idea of using Parallax Tide in the main deck, besides being an answer to Gorehaven, which is simply a nightmare. That's a card that lets you combo even when you don't have Phyrexian Dreadnought. Stifle and Chain of Vapor are part of this deck, they are great main deck cards anyway. So yes, I think it's definitely a card worth playing, also freeing up sideboard slots. Terrageddon has changed too. A lot of players are now using Meddling Mage. I think that's better than Glow Rider, and again, this is an adaptation to beat the decks I had mentioned earlier, decks that rely on creature spells. These Terrageddon variants give up more to aggro compared to the original green-white Terrageddon, a rock-solid deck. Meddling Mage basically takes the slots originally occupied by Nimble Mongoose, which is probably the weakest card in the deck. But you need to be careful to compensate for that loss, because mono-reds like and really find a highway in front of itself. Other aggressive strategies will take advantage as well. Blue-white replenish, I've seen a whole lot of lists using 3-main deck mana leak. I would rather keep the deck as smooth as possible. This is a combo deck. Mana leak is replacing Tsabo's Web, but still, Tsabo's Web draws a card, protects your lands a little bit, I don't know. So let me know your thoughts on these archetypes and on the others as well. I'll try to publish the Urza blog, review and wishlist as soon as possible. Thanks for watching and see you soon.